Welcome to the Margins of Victory podcast. I'm your host, Craig Pintons, the athletic director at LMU. Episode 4, we have a great guest for you, the president of Playfly Aspire, Gil Beverly. Gil has a great background, having worked at ESPN selling corporate sponsorships, was at Learfield for a bit, and also with the Tennessee Titans, where he really did some unique things in the Nashville market, really tying in the Nashville scene. We even talked about whether or not they ever cracked the code on bachelorette parties. Fascinating conversation. Talked about premium seating as well and all the opportunities that exist, whether it's on the professional level or the college level. Enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the Margins of Victory podcast. I'm your host, Craig Pintons. Today, very pleased to be joined by Gil Beverly. Gil has a lot of experience in the sports and entertainment industry, currently the president of Playfly Aspire, where he's focused on enhancing premium hospitality and fan experience to unlock new revenue streams for partners. And this is episode 4, Gil. So we're going to start out with probably the most difficult question we're going to have. There are kind of three. There's a lot more than 3 probably, but there's 3 kind of famous number 4s in sports. You've got Lou Gehrig, Bobby Orr, and Brett Favre. So we're going to play start, bench, and trade. With those 3, who are you starting, benching, and trading?
I'm from Chicago, so I'm definitely trading Favre.
Fair enough. The rivalry runs deep, and I'm from Wisconsin, so I respect that decision. That is a very
trade, wave, whatever. He's not on my team. With respect, I'm probably starting. It was Orr and Gehrig. I'm starting
Orr and Gehrig. Yeah, you gotta start one and bench the other.
I'm starting Gehrig because, like, as much as I understand that, a little bit about the science of like load management and the need for rest and all that sort of stuff, you just got to respect the Iron Man aesthetic and how tough he must have been to have done what he did there. And so it's really more about him and less about Orr. So
no, that's fair enough. I mean, if you're going to start him, you're not taking him out of the lineup for a long time.
To, right?
Yeah, you don't have to. He's in there. He's not coming out. Well, again, you have such a varied background. We're pleased to have you back in college athletics, which is really where you started your career, kind of after working in the real world after you got out of Penn. But with all the changes that have occurred in college athletics, what does college athletics today, as it stands, mean to you?
Oh, man. I just was in another interview and I was asked a very similar question. Like, with all the changes, does it change your approach to the business? Does it change your approach to being a fan? And, I think universally the jury's still out in terms of what is the impact of, increased commercialization, compensation for players. How does that land with fans? But for me, college sports is as great as it ever was. There's still the passion, community, rivalry, and tradition that underpins the sport. I think that with increased commercialization, leaders in the sport, it's incumbent upon us to handle with care and find ways to pursue our commercial goals while still providing that value to fans, value to the communities, value to the student athletes in a way that still is conducive with, ultimately driving the revenue. And I believe that you can serve all masters and that there's ways to do that without compromising what's great about the sport.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I think we are at a critical juncture. Obviously, that's part of why this podcast exists. Everybody's under revenue pressure to try to figure out how to solve that particular puzzle. Early in your career, you're at ESPN. You rise to the VP of college sports. In that role, and you're dealing with a lot of corporate sponsorship.
Yeah.
Walk me through that process of how that works when you're selling these immense properties, including the college football playoff. What does that look like in terms of kind of from finding a sponsor, getting to the end, and how did you look at that?
So I've had people tease me before, like, how hard is it to sell ESPN? Or you've worked for the NFL, like, oh, selling the Shield, big whoop, right? And the reality of it is that, for the bigger properties like a CFP, like ESPN, like the NFL, sure, who wouldn't want to be in that business? But only so many people can be from a sponsorship standpoint. There's only so many folks that have the budget, and then they have to have the interest. And if you have that budget, by the way, the world's your oyster. There's lots of choices. You have to figure out, it starts with value. And when you're talking to a Home Depot or a potential college football playoff advertiser, I forget which one of my mentors said this to me. It might have actually been Jim Warsaw, actually, that you don't do business with corporations or organizations, you do deals with people. And so if you're asking somebody for an 8-figure multi-year investment, 8 figures a year, multi-year investment to be the sponsor of game day, to be the official of CFP or the NFL, that's a big swing for a human being. They have to go to their boss, their board, whatever the case may be, and articulate a case for that. So really starting with that level of empathy, and then understanding that you have to create a value proposition that is clear and easily communicated and organic and real, so that the person in the on the other side of the table can be successful, and that the people behind them can be. So, it's really one of those things that as it's coming out of my mouth, it sounds really simple, but a lot of things are simple but not easy. So there's a lot of work that goes underneath all that.
A lot of things are simple but not easy. Those are words to live by right there. One of the things that you hit on in that answer, which I think is really interesting, is it is relationship based. What happens when that relationship changes with the sponsor? And what I mean by that is maybe there's a leadership change in terms of who you were dealing with. How do you kind of reconvince or resell that partnership? Because somebody's walking in the middle of a partnership, they're looking at all the contracts and they're only looking at the piece of paper. They don't know you. What do you do in that situation?
They don't know me. They don't know the history. There's no investment going back to the person-to-person thing. One of the benefits of my approach to sales and relationships is, especially being on the sales side, which is where I've been for most of my career, is that I don't even think in terms of renewal. You do a deal for 5 years, then you have to renew it. Like in my mind, you do a deal and you have to keep selling it. Like if I have to renew and convince you at the end of 5 years that what we've been doing together over the course of a term is good, then I've already lost. So no matter who's in that seat, even if it's the person I did the deal with, even if it's the person that I've had a relationship for 10 years or whatever the case may be, I think in terms of I have to keep justifying, articulating the value, over delivering all the things, no matter what. And so I think as long as you keep that hustle mindset and you think in terms of where are we in terms of our value proposition, in terms of what we sold in, and then hopefully what we're over delivering, when those changes happen, you'll be in a good place because you've done the work. You're not cramming. You're not, you're not having to tell a story that isn't real or authentic. And the other thing too is you also have to realize that this person was hired for a reason, and they're coming in with their own lens and their own sort of directives, and you need to be super curious about what those are, and no matter how you feel about your delivery to date, you need to be ready to adjust to whatever that person's objectives are.
No, I think you're exactly right. And an interesting take on kind of the renewal process. One of the big things in corporate sponsorship clearly is kind of the sponsor recap that you provide at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And based on that, my sense is you probably put together some pretty polished sponsor recaps. How do you blend in the analytics side of that in terms of the ROI that they actually are receiving, combined with kind of that affinity play for either a team and or a university?
I think, again, it goes back to the front end process of, whatever my data is, it's only relevant if it's meeting your KPIs. So if your goal is to drive subscriptions and I give you impressions numbers, hey, that's great. Love all the zeros, but I only got 5 subscriptions out of it, whatever it is. So I think, first of all, you got to begin with the end in mind. What's their ultimate objective? And make sure that recap and that story you're trying to tell is directly addressing that. And if you weren't able to address it, what went wrong? How are you going to improve in year two? And what do we need to do together to put yourself in that space? But you want to have as much data as you can, but you need to make it. Sometimes I think data has become such a buzzword. So as long as I have it in the presentation, I'm good, right? Here's some data. Here you go. But like, what is it? And is it what I asked you for? And is it relevant to me? And even better, I asked you for this data. You brought me more, but it's relevant because based on your understanding of what I need and what I'm doing. So again, simple, but not easy because I see it done wrong all the time.
So would you say that listening is really an underrated thing in sales in general, whether it be corporate sponsorship or ticket sales?
Oh, 100%. Like, I never thought, and I still don't think of myself as being in sales. Like, like you'd asked a 25-year-old me, hey, would you like to go in sales? No, like who wants to do that? It's not, it's problem solving. Your customer has a challenge, a problem, or whatever the case may be, and it's up to me to figure out a solution that's powerful and that will deliver. And if I do that, I don't have to sell it to you because it's the solution to your problem. And that's how I think of it. And if I don't think I have the solution to your problem, I'm not selling it. When you hear people say something like, well, I could sell ice to Eskimos. And the question to me becomes, why would you ever do that? Like that person doesn't need ice. And what's their real problem and how can you solve it? So that's kind of how I look at it. And you can't solve problems without listening. And, again, simple, but not easy for some people, apparently. And we all know those folks, but the cliche, you got two ears and one mouth for a reason. And I think that's no more true. And that's a very powerful framework to think through when you're in marketing and sales.
Yeah, the Ice to Eskimo is a title of a book by John Spolstra.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, no, John Spolstra is a giant kind of in the ticketing world and the father of Eric Spolstra. So, and apparently, that was the title of his book. So maybe it does work. Maybe you can sell Ice to Eskimos. I'm not
could
sure.
Be wrong.
No, I don't know if that's true or not. And to your point, I'm not sure that trying to sell ice to Eskimos when they have a ton of it out there, it makes a whole lot of sense. Let's find a way to transition, which I don't know how I'm going to do that from ice and Eskimos. But I think some of the things that you did with the Tennessee Titans were really interesting when you were there. And if you could walk us through the 20-second element season ticket loyalty program, because to me, I think there are so many pro teams and universities that have tried different loyalty programs. And, they have a little bit of momentum maybe initially, and then they kind of run out of steam. Just explain what the 20-second element was, and then maybe we can go from there.
Yeah, indulge me for a second for a little bit of context. So it really came about because Nashville is a destination town. And so what would happen is that what happens is that if you're a fan of another team and you're the type of person that will go on a road trip to go see your team play, you circle Nashville. Who wouldn't want a fun weekend in Nashville, particularly if you're from a cold weather city and as you get into the winter? And so we had these games where the Kansas City Chiefs fans would just come and paint the town and our building red. Buffalo Bills, same thing. New York Jets, same thing. And our owner, the team owner, got frustrated. Like, what are we doing here? Like, where are our fans and why do these other folks dominate our building? And it was a tough nut to crack. And so we actually did a little bit of a hackathon internally to start figuring out what we might do. And one of the things that came out of it was it was less of a loyalty program and it was more of an attendance program. And we called it the 20-second element. Again, we were the Tennessee Titans. The 20-second element on the periodic table is titanium. And at the time, we had a pretty good running back that wore the number 22, as an aside, a gentleman by the name of Derrick Henry.
He's not bad. He's
not
okay.
bad. He's all right.
Yeah.
22 people on the field at any given time. So 22 had had a nice ring to it. But the initial conceit was that if you not only if you were a season ticket member, it was assuming you already were a season ticket member, you would get benefits that would accrue if you actually attended the game without transferring your tickets. So it really was about attendance. And we came up with this this light blue satin bomber jacket, like it looked like the starter jackets from like the late 80s, early 90s. And it was great jacket. It's beautiful. And people lost their mind over it. That was the only real incentive that first year. And it's like you had to attend like 7 out of the 8 home games and you would get this jacket. And it was really successful. And then once we realized that people were sort of kind of getting behind it, we figured out that, oh, we can create a real community behind this. And when there were things like playoff games, so and you for darn sure, I won't curse on your podcast, you wanted to make sure that the right people were showing up to a playoff game. And so we knew that if we put extra tickets available, if we had excess single game tickets or singles or hard to move inventory, that if we made it available to the 22nd Element group, that there was a real strong likelihood that those would stay in Titans fans' hands. And it worked every time. And we got momentum, and then we were able to do other things with it that did sort of seg more into the loyalty space, but it really started off as an attendance thing. And you kind of identify who your best fans are that way. And now you've got a different sort of relationship. And it was really cool.
How do you view kind of the resale market in general? I think that is such a tough one for a lot of people out there to try to comprehend. I mean, on one hand, once you're selling the ticket, your job is to sell the ticket.
Yeah.
But you have this external pressure to make sure that your fans are also in the building. How do you kind of marry those two to generate the most amount of revenue, but also make sure that you do, whatever that color is that you don't want in your building, red, orange, blue, purple. Yeah. How do you do that? There's not an answer to it. Maybe it's a question that doesn't have an answer, but I guess just in general, what is kind of your view? Because there's two ways to look at it. Some people are very very skittish about even dipping their toe as an organization into the resale market. But I guess let me simplify it. Do you embrace the secondary market, or do you actually kind of give it the Heisman?
So I think I'll get back to this first point, but some of it depends on the nature of your organization and what your leadership's goals are. Like, is it truly to optimize revenue? Is it truly to have the best game presentation and fan experience? And some of that will drive some of this. For the Titans, the environment and the game presentation was super important to the team owner, and making another 10 grand on tickets less so. So that helped provide a little bit of a roadmap for me in that role. Generally speaking, though, like my philosophy is you don't fight consumers. Like you'll never win. At the end of the day, if people want to transact and exchange in secondary markets, they're going to do that. And so the best thing you can do is figure out how to make that work for you. Like the 22nd Element was a good example of that. How do I create my product and my experience, or create new experiences in ways that either people don't want to resell their tickets, that there's disincentives to do that, or maybe, for whatever reason, whether it's economic, whether it's the experience, whatever the case may be. But how do I provide that disincentive to do that? And make the game something that you can't miss, and that you don't want to get rid of your tickets. Because in the case of the Titans, half the secondary market tickets started off with season ticket members. So that to me was where you tried to plug the hole is, hey, you're a season ticket member, you spend a bunch of money, you love the Titans. So like, how do we get you into the building and get your mind off of the $300 you can get it for your each of your Dallas Cowboy tickets, because that's the big game this year, whatever the case may be. So I tried to stick, you try to start with it being a you problem and not so much a consumer problem, because ultimately it's up to you to manage that relationship as the property. And it's all within reason. Like when you get like these folks that are like, warehousing, they're based in New York and they're paying local people to buy the tickets, and they're warehousing like 1,000 tickets and dumping them in the marketplace. That's where I'm ready to fight that guy.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I focus on trying to create the most value for the consumer, and then just making them not want to transfer their tickets.
How can you use the secondary market data, which a lot of times, if you have a partnership, you can get it provided to you? How do you use that to inform ticket pricing?
Well, yeah, you get the real value, right? Like, and the other way that you fight the secondary market is to participate and make sure that there can't be outsized gains by bad actors. So dynamic pricing and putting things out there that are competitive with the going rate that provides that disincentive to do what I said earlier, to warehouse 1,000 tickets and to sell against it. But you also have to protect the value of your primary market, and so it's a real conundrum. And the smart guys with all the data and analytics to kind of optimize all that is kind of what you lean into. But it's not simple. That's neither simple nor easy.
Yeah, no, I think it is. Pricing is always really difficult, but the more you can utilize the data to inform your decisions, obviously, the more revenue you're going to be able to generate. One of the other things that you were really intentional about, or seemingly intentional, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when you were with the Titans, you really leaned into Nashville and some of the things that exist in Nashville. Obviously, a great country music scene, and you also kind of leaned into fashion and lifestyle.
Yeah.
So you had a streetwear gear relationship with Rooted and Hang that would kind of create this new thing for the Titans. How did that kind of come about, or how did that, walk me through that from kind of the concept into execution?
Yeah. So, I had multiple hats at the Titans. I was chief marketing and revenue officer. So from a marketing perspective, my philosophy was, let's find the intersections between football and Nashville culture and activate those intersections. And, I've lived in multiple places. Everyone has civic pride. Great. There's lots of great cities in the country, but Nashville is just so culturally rich. Like, it has a great soul to it. It's a unique town. It's not a place that you can go and say, oh, this is just like Memphis. It's just like New Orleans. There's no place like it. And so how do we make that appeal to that level of pride and then activate it in cool ways? So in my mind, Nashville culture was defined obviously by music, art, fashion, food and alcohol, frankly, F&B. And so we systematically went through and tried to figure out, okay, what's the art application? What's the fashion application? What's the music application? And you referred to a few partnerships that we did with local fashion brands. That was the other thing. There's a lot of love for the local brands and pride of made in Nashville. And so how do we work with those folks to bring something different, like especially younger folks? They're, everyone, I lived in Oregon. We talked about that. We all do the Nike stuff, but people want to wear like the local subversive, fun. In one instance, the Hang relationship, they really lean into the fans have this saying, I woke up this morning feeling like it was time to tighten the F up.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. And that's not something that you might get from a retailer.
No, Nike's not putting that on a t-shirt.
No,
so getting something in a Titans fan's voice built in their market, and the gear was cool, was super effective and a lot of fun.
Did you ever find a way to tie up the bachelorette parties that Nashville is famous for? Did you ever figure out a way to do that with the Titans? Because that seems to be, that's a key demographic, right?
Yes. And it's funny you mention it. The short answer is no, we never, at least during my time there, we didn't unlock the code. But one of the things that was always in the back of my mind that I wanted to unlock was dating. Like, how do we create a dating opportunity within a Titans context? And the long story short was you ultimately didn't want to take responsibility for any outcomes.
Probably. Yeah. That's one that when you explain that to people in the office, at some point your general counsel says, I don't think we're going to touch that one. That one might need to stay on the shelf.
The lawyers rain on the parade. I even reached out to the CMO of Bumble And she was like, "Yeah, thanks, but no thanks." I still think there's something there if we can get beyond if you can get beyond the legality and the risk management of it all. So never cracked the code on bachelorettes. It was interesting though, because we did try to think through that, because Nashville is like, whatever it is, the 28th biggest market within the NFL ecosystem. But on weekends, it goes up because of just how big a tourist destination it is. It's like, how can we take advantage of that? Like, and get on the circuit. Like when you come for your bachelorette party, come to a Titans game. So, we never got, at least while I was there, we never got a great strategy there, but it's a really good question. And somebody should figure it out.
Yeah, no, that one would be a tricky one to figure out. So maybe you have to get to work or crowdsource that one. Send in your ideas. We'll send them to the
Absolutely.
Titans
I still know
and see
people
what
there.
works.
If you have a bachelorette idea for the Titans, we'll get it to them.
Yeah, we'll get it in their hands and hopefully it works. You obviously have been with Playfly Aspire and do a great job of kind of helping schools generate ticket revenue in what is a critical time. One of the things that I know you've mentioned and is near and dear to you is kind of the premium fan experience. And I guess, what can schools or organizations do when they're looking at their venues to kind of figure out the stratification or segmentation that you might need within a venue? And how do you start that process? Because I think there's so many people that want to do it, but they don't know where to start.
They call me. Spend a little money.
Call you, yeah. Gil will figure it out for you. Just call Gil.
I think the good news is that there's a couple of market dynamics that are kind of converging, right? So, like, to your point, folks like yourself and your peers, you're looking at the world, you're like, oh man, I got to get some more money, I got the revenue sharing, all the things, costs keep going up, I need revenue to do the same. So how can we do that? What levers can we pull? Well, I've got this facility that, as it stands today, it's fixed. Like, there's, I have X number of seats, I can charge X, Y amount for it, and that spits out this revenue equation. Within reason, I can raise prices every year, the nominal amount, all the things. But premium, creates, if you can create more premium inventory with added value amenities, now you're widening the margins in terms of cost versus revenue, and premium inventory has stronger renewal rates. So now you're creating a product with strong margins, and that's effectively an annuity in a way that even your standard ticket, season ticket, might not be. So the revenue upside, the economic equation from the sell side is positive, and then on the buy side, fans are demanding this. They're going to pro stadiums, and they're seeing the different types of experiences you can have at an Allegiant Stadium, where I think they have something like 18 different products or something like that. And it also turns out that not every fan's the same. Like, when I was coming up, premium was the big skybox in the sky, and the 20-person suite, and the cold pretzels and all that, right? And that represented the height of premium. And nowadays, like, even if you do have a high level disposable income, like, not that I'm not pointing at myself, but I don't love the suite experience. I prefer clubs or smaller areas where I can get up and sit down to my heart's content, that I can go be social, that I can designate as a meeting place for my friends. That's the experience that I like. Someone else might like the little family loge boxes like they have at the End Zone in Hard Rock Stadium. There's different taste at different budgets for different types of premium, and the way to really maximize both your fan experience and in terms of giving the folks what they want, as well as your revenue equation, is to come up with an ecosystem that has a range of product that you can bring to your market and sell. And so, to your point, from a collegiate standpoint, most of us in the college world aren't in a place to, build a new stadium the way the Titans are right now. So you're really talking renovations. And so how do you, look at a white space analysis of what the opportunities in your building? Like, are there concourses that are lightly used? Are there seats that you're really not charging a whole lot for that could have a higher purpose with some renovation to it? All the things from a design and construct and architecture standpoint that can feed into a better revenue and fan experience equation. And then if you can figure out how to make that investment, which Playfly can help doing that, by the way, a quick commercial.
Yeah, absolutely.
You find out your funding mechanism, and then you develop a narrative, and whether to your marketplace and to your internal stakeholders, and then ultimately you figure out what the best optimized version of your facility, and you go to market with it.
No, I think that makes complete sense. If you look at any of the new venues that are being built, they already have these spaces built in because we've learned that over the years that distressed inventory, you probably have a better idea of how to move that by having those type of spaces. I think of and again, it's an older building now at this point, which sounds crazy to say, but T-Mobile in Vegas
Yeah.
was built very intentionally to maximize kind of that one-off. So in the very upper rafters of it, they have kind of some club type spaces in the
Oh
upper
yeah,
rafters.
yeah.
That would normally be a terrible seat.
Yeah, and well, the other big aha for me when working for a team was that because I'm a big X's and O's between the lines sports guy. Like I would understand what defense are they in, what kind of offense are we running, like all the scheme, all of that, right? But there's a good portion of your folks that come to your building and they have no intention of watching your game.
Yeah. Oh
They
yeah. No, very
they
true.
just want to be in your mix, and they want to be outside. Like that drink and burger hits a little different if it's outside on a nice day than it does in your backyard, even or on your couch. And some people just enjoy that. Or even like and this is an extreme example in my opinion, at least, like the whole concept, going back to Oregon and like in the Matt Knight Arena where they play basketball, they sell bunker suites and they make a
Yeah.
lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
why in God?
There's four
Why
of
am
them.
I not? Yeah, why am I paying for this? I have a bunker suite at home. It's called my living room.
Right. Right.
But there are
People like
people that
Yeah.
find value of being in the building and being able to have that experience.
Yeah, no, I think the bunker suite concept is fascinating to me because you really legitimately have no view of the court, but people do it, and oftentimes they do come with seats that you can kind of trickle out to.
Yeah,
But sometimes you just enjoy being in your own bunker suite, which again, to your point, you can do at home. But hey, if it's going to generate revenue, let's explore it.
well, real quick, that also ties in something else. Playfly is in market right now with a survey about premium, and we're testing like things like different products that preferences and price sensitivities, all the standard stuff. But we're also looking at what are the motivations behind premium. And the bunker suite's a great example. Like, is it truly that you're more comfortable in there? Is it that you enjoy the F&B? Is there a status of being able to say, hey, by the way, that's my bunker suite right there?
Right. Right.
Which, and I think one of the positive things about those things are that you can entertain on non-game days, and it has value outside of the actual basketball game. And so that is one plus to it. But I think there hasn't been a lot of academic study about premium and what goes into it. And understanding the motivations is going to be really interesting to see what we come back with on that.
Well, and I think that's even more critical for a renovation of a facility because you're going to need the data to make sure that you can actually sell that because you're going to spend money on the renovation. You need to make sure that you can at least cover that. So
yeah, it all starts with feasibility for sure. And
absolutely. You need to understand your consumer and get that. Well, this has been great, Gil. We've asked this question of every guest that's come on. And I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think actually I'm going to guess one or two people. I'm not going to reveal that. But who is your favorite athlete of all time and why?
Oh, God, Michael Jordan.
I was going to say you were either going Jordan or Peyton, one of the two.
Yeah. No, despite my boyish looks, I'm a 90s kid from Chicago. So there's only one answer if you're fit that profile. I think for me, all jokes aside, the dunks from the free throw line when that was a rarity, the acrobatics in the air, the winning, all that, sure, check. That's amazing. There's no one like him in that regard. But for me, as in terms of the person and professional, and even the father that I aspire to be, one of the things I love about Jordan is he's the most talented guy in the room and the hardest worker in the room. And so, many of us are blessed with a certain level of talent. You can't control that to a degree. what do you do with it? And are you willing to apply that talent every day with maximum intensity? And that cuts a little bit of different ways, as we saw in The Last Dance, in terms of like,
Yeah.
do you want to hang out with that guy? Like, I don't know.
Probably not. Not all the time.
Not unless you're really good and putting forth the same level of effort, right? But yeah, that combination of the intersection of talent and hard work is like, I don't claim to be anywhere near that. But in terms of a North Star, in terms of how I approach tasks and what I would, ideally aspire to, that's what I really truly love about Michael.
So how do you combat the younger people in the LeBron Jordan debate? Like what's your stock answer? Where do you go with that?
Okay. Because I do have one, because
Let's go. I want to hear it.
Way more than it should. Michael Jordan has never been the primary reason that his team lost in the playoffs or lost in the finals. LeBron was a catalyst in the Heat losing to the Dallas Mavericks. You can trace them losing that series to him. So before you get into the number of rings and all the things and all that, you've seen more no-shows from him, and he's great, by the way. And it sucks to be in a position where people are like, well, which one? They're both awesome. And I love what LeBron's done in his community. I love the example he's set to be in terms of just the agency for athletes, in terms of, dictating your future on and off the court. I think he's had a spectacular career in all respects, but Jordan's better.
Amen. Hey, I just need some fodder. I need some different arguments, and that's a new one for me. So I'm going to have to bring that up to my sons when they question it, even though they watched Last Dance, and after they watched it, they admitted
moved the needle a little bit.
Yeah, they didn't. It did move them a little bit, but then LeBron does something spectacular, and I've got to go back to the talking points. So I appreciate the new one for me. That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, you have to respect the man, though. I mean, I'm older than him, but even when I thinking about when I was his age, I'm like, the notion of like dunking a basketball,
oh yeah.
It's not even so much, because I still every now and then make sure I can still grab the rim, right?
Yep.
And the jumping is part of the issue, because I don't jump like I used to.
Yeah, I agree.
The bigger issue is landing.
Well, as you get older, it's like, you can touch the rim, but don't actually grab onto it, because then you got to get down from there. That's the issue.
Yeah, the landings are not as smooth as they used to be. And the fact that he's doing this, maybe not every night, but he's doing it a lot more than I am.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, Gil, this has been a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you coming on, and wish you the best of luck. If anybody needs any help there with premium seating, definitely reach out to Playfly, Aspire, and Gil, and they'll take care of you. So thanks, Gil.
Thanks, Craig. This was great.